Jeremy Krenek was born and raised in Central Texas. Initially, he grew up on approximately 200 acres out in the middle of nowhere. When he was 8 years old, his family moved to North Austin. However, the family ranch was still active, usually averaging around 50 head of cattle, as well as many other animals, including horses, guineas, goats, chickens, and hogs. Jeremy went back often, particularly as his grandpa got older, to help maintain the ranch. This is the basis for his strong work ethic. Jeremy's parents are avid anglers. This allowed Jeremy to spend much of his childhood on the many lakes in Central Texas instead of falling in love with fishing. However, Jeremy fell in love with water sports at a very early age. In high school, Jeremy quit playing his high school sports, basketball and tennis, to concentrate on his love for wakeboarding. While attending Texas State University, Jeremy formed the first collegiate wakeboarding team in the state of Texas. He proposed buying a boat to his parents and using the membership dues for the team to make a boat payment. After a lot of discussion, his parents decided to allow him to try this business model out and helped him to buy a boat. His passion for wakeboarding easily transitioned to snowboarding when Jeremy and his now wife Kelly moved to Tahoe in 2006 for one winter. They fell in love with Tahoe and lived here for a couple years before moving back to Texas so that Kelly could go to nursing school. Jeremy and Kelly were looking for a way to get back to Tahoe, and Jeremy soon realized that working the family business was going to prohibit this dream from ever happening. And that's when he started seriously considering the dark side of the planet and law school. Jeremy moved to Santa Clara, California in 2010 to attend Santa Clara University School of Law. He had interned at Incline Law Group after his first year in the summer of 2011. The summer also included taking an appellate advocacy class in Santa Clara. The class got out at 9 p.m. on Wednesday, at which point Jeremy would drive to Tahoe and crash on a friend's couch.
Oh my gosh.
He then worked at the law firm on Thursday and Friday, and at Crosby's Thursday night, Friday night, and a double on Saturday, before returning to Santa Clara.
Wow.
He would write his appellate advocacy papers on Sunday and do it all over again the next week. This must have made an impression because Incline Law Group offered Jeremy a job straight out of law school, allowed him and Kelly to follow their dream of getting back to Tahoe much sooner than expected. As if Jeremy wasn't already sold on starting his legal career in Tahoe, when he was discussing the offer with one of his partners, she stated, while we can't offer the same money that a Bay Area firm can, if it's a powder day and you're a couple hours late, it's no big deal. Should have got that
Yeah. You have a job like that.
Oh my God.
So a lot of times when I tell people about wakeboarding, they're not familiar with it if you didn't grow up by a lake. Or if you weren't on a lake a bunch in the late 90s, early 2000s, then you may not have seen what it's really about. In 9th grade, I started asking my parents for a boat. But this just wasn't any boat. It was a $60,000 wakeboard boat.
Right.
I obviously had no concept of money or how much money that is because I still can't afford a $60,000 wakeboard boat. However, when I went to college and started talking about this wakeboard team and started doing some calculations, well, if we get this many members and this much money and figured out what the payment would be, it's ridiculous as well. It's like, maybe I can make this happen. So after numerous discussions with my parents where they told me I was drunk or what drugs was I on or man, college has really ruined me and all of this stuff, they finally said, you know what, maybe it'll work. And we're going to put it in your name, so if you screw it up, you screwed it up. But they did help me buy it, and throughout college, particularly in my senior year of college, I spent 4 days a week on the lake. So I was able to manage my classes and be able to do that because I took all my hard classes on the front end, made it to where all my electives were my last year of school. So, and I had to spend 4 days a week on the lake because I had a duty to my wakeboard team to take them out on the boat. And I wasn't just going to give them my $60,000 boat. So what we did is we made a video because we were poor college kids. We needed wakeboards, ropes, life jackets, all the stuff that's also expensive. And so we made this video. We took a Tuesday out on Lake Austin, and we took a bunch of people. I think we had 11 or 12 people in my boat rated for 10. And we made this video and sent it out. The funny part about this video is you'll see some really good wakeboarders on here, but the #1 cable rider in the world for cable wakeboarding went to our school. He's not in the video. The guy, Gabe Lucas, was the #3 wakeboarder in the world. He's also not in the video. They both went to Texas State. We just couldn't coordinate it where everybody could go and get them to come and all of that stuff. But you'll realize how much talent we actually had at our school. So go ahead and hit play and turn up the volume, please. That's Lake Austin, yeah. It's the Colorado River.
Where's your volume on your...
It's on the top right. Yeah, it's Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, so you can just play it in your head, maybe. So that's my boat.
Why is that not coming up?
That's Kelly. Yeah, it's made to make the biggest wake possible.
So it sucks water in to make its back end heavier?
We weigh it down with water and people. This had about 2,500 pounds of water and then 10 people in it or so.
Wow.
That's one of my best friends, Matt.
Pretty low.
So why does it have to be so heavy?
Because the more water you displace, the bigger the wake behind it is.
Of course, duh.
So who's videoing this?
My friend Clint, he actually has a video company now in Denver, Colorado. They do all kinds of stuff for the Mountain Dew Tour and X Games, and that's Clint right there.
So he's on a separate road.
Yeah, yeah, and we actually had a jet ski. My friend Matt's parents are the one that lived on the lake, and he had a jet ski, so we used it to film, and then Clint edited it all up and put it all together for us.
So how much gas do you get through on a great big heavy boat like that?
When it's weighed down like this, it's 8 gallons an hour,
Big
but worth every penny.
Yeah. of
Especially back
course,
then when
I
gas
bet.
prices were like $1.50.
Right.
Have we seen you yet?
Yeah, I'm interspersed throughout here.
Oh,
So.
tell us what
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah.
I can't recognize.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me driving. See the blonde highlights there?
Back that up there.
It was all the summer. That wasn't.
What lake is this?
This is Lake Austin, which is actually the Colorado River.
So they have a lot of fingers in it? Or is
No,
it
it's
just long and narrow?
long and narrow,
So
and
you get good water.
yeah, really wind protected in a lot of places. It gets really rough on the weekends, but
Is that
you know,
you?
off seasons. And no, that's I can't remember that guy's name.
Do people get injured easily? Is it really?
Yeah, a lot of
dangerous?
ACLs.
Uh-huh.
I've seen some pretty bad ones, broken sternums, broken ribs. I've broken ribs, ruptured eardrums.
Yeah.
Is that from loud music?
Hillside Fox.
Hey, kids!
We go about 22, 23 miles an hour.
23, okay. So slower than
Nice.
ski.
Yeah, much slower than the ski. We basically go as slow as we can without the weight curling, because you don't want the other part of it. So if you go to the PowerPoint, which is right behind it. So that was kind of the glory days. What the heck? That's the wrong. Yeah, that's the old one. How did that get up?
Well, you need to get over here and rearrange your PowerPoint. That's not the one that I downloaded, that's for sure. Here.
I thought I opened the right one, but apparently I didn't.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
That's good, yeah. First
Yeah,
step.
you're good.
Yeah. So, I'm a lawyer. And I definitely have to start all of these with a couple lawyer jokes, because they're some of my favorite too. So you can go to the next slide. A doctor and a lawyer were attending a cocktail party when the doctor was approached by a man who asked advice on how to handle his ulcer. The doctor mumbled some medical advice, then turned to the lawyer and remarked, "I never know how to handle the situation when I'm asked for medical advice during a social function. Is it acceptable to send a bill for such advice?" The lawyer replied that it was certainly acceptable to do so. The next day, the doctor sent the ulcer-stricken man a bill, and the lawyer sent the doctor a bill. A man phones a lawyer and asks, "How much would you charge to just answer 3 simple questions?" The lawyer replies, $1,000. $1,000, exclaims the man. "That's very expensive, isn't it?" It certainly is, says the lawyer. Now, what's your third question? Okay, so part of what we do is not saving you from yourself. A lot of times people call in way too late in the process, whereas they would have called earlier. We could have said, don't send that email, don't send that letter, don't do it that way, let's do it a different way. We basically are there to kind of tell you what you don't want to hear in many instances, and what your options are to remedy the problem. Most of the time it's a cost-benefit analysis, like we can do it this way, and sometimes that involves just pay the guy to go away. It's only going to cost you $1,000 or $2,000 to get him to go away, which I say only, and the only is in comparison to if you can sue him, but basically the minimum for litigation is about $20,000, and that's the minimum. Just because once you get involved, there's a number of things that can happen that we can't project. We see it all the time, but we never know what who they're going to hire, how crazy that lawyer is going to be. There's a huge difference if I know the lawyer or I'm friends with the other lawyer on the other side, compared to if it's the opposite. Maybe I've never heard of him, or maybe he's just a crazy guy. So if it's the friendly situation, I can usually settle it much easier. We can be reasonable, all that stuff. If it's not friendly, it becomes much more adversary. All right, next slide. So what you're saying, Dad, is that when a person has a problem, they call a lawyer like you to fix it. If you fix it, you get a lot of money. But if you don't fix it, you also get a lot of money? One thing that we handle a lot is entity formation. Usually this is done, a lot of people do this on the front end, and a lot of people wait until it blows up first. So if you're a sole proprietor, essentially, and maybe you have some entity that you work under, maybe bylaws aren't that important. But if you ever intend to grow, ever intend to bring in a partner, you certainly want some kind of operating agreement. You want to know what happens if that person perishes. You want to know what happens if that person decides to leave the business. You want to know what happens. You want to keep that person from selling to somebody else, and now you have some partner you've never met before. So these are really straightforward agreements. In most instances, they can be done for fairly inexpensive amounts. Sometimes they get more complicated depending on the business, but it's really something to think about if you don't have this, to make sure you get something like this sooner rather than later. Next slide. So another advantage of businesses is a lot of times people don't take the formal steps to form an entity, and then they get sued for something they did for their business. If you don't have that protection of a business that you're operating under, all of a sudden all of your personal assets are at stake. If I'm the lawyer on the other side, I am suing you for your house, your children, your wife or husband, everything I can get my hands on. If you have an entity, in most cases, if you follow the formalities, they can't get through to your personal stuff. So that's why entities are a good thing. Trusts are also a good thing. They add another layer of that protection. So if you have your individual stuff, you have an entity, and you have a trust that holds other stuff, now they have to pierce a couple things to get there, and it's usually not going to happen. All right, next one. So contracts, we talked about this just a little bit. Some of the boilerplate language that people overlook is really important, such as jurisdiction and venue clauses, choice of law clauses. That keeps you home. Instead of, if someone sues you particularly, and they live in New Jersey, well, they may sue you in New Jersey, and now you have to go to New Jersey to fight a lawsuit. That sucks. So having things like forum selection clauses are really important. Also, there's one called, a lot of times on contracts it says entire agreement. This is our entire agreement. Because there's a lot of negotiations that go into a lot of contracts. And people may understand that, oh, we're doing it this way, where the contract says we're doing it this way. If that clause isn't in there, they may introduce this other thing where our actual agreement was this. But if that one kind of boilerplate clause is in there, they call it force majeure. If it's in there, then that keeps them from bringing all of that outside stuff from the negotiations in, and it makes the judge just look at the document. Here's what this says. This is what you're doing. Sort of. Next slide. All right, so who has 3 questions? What's up?
Are you a genie? No.
Yeah.
I've heard of people who, somebody I know who lives in Reno, has been very, very creative with creating so many entities and not paying any taxes really, because everything is fed through these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I, you know, you're saying it's a good thing to do, and it sounds really dodgy to me. What do you think? Does it raise like alarm bells in the IRS's eyes or something? I mean,
Well, that's generally a tax question, and I defer to my buddy over here.
right.
But
Yes, it's dodgy.
the thing is, okay, so there are certain things that are dodgy, as you put it. However, why there's so many things in the law that punish us, right, for certain things, like whatever. There's a bunch of stuff. So taxes. But there's so many things that do kind of punish you, or you don't benefit that much from, or you have to pay for. And there's so many loopholes or ways to get around it that are legal. So why not take advantage of those legal ways to do that whenever you can? It may be justified in certain instances and others maybe not. If you have a high net worth or you're bringing in a bunch of money, being able to kind of push that stuff out to other places and keep your tax bracket lower would certainly be beneficial, so that way you get to keep more of the money. But you obviously want to abide by the law, because it's not going to benefit you at all if you're sitting in a jail cell.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of times when we're forming entities, we'll have a discussion with the client, send them over to Darren or their CPA, and then they come back and say, all right, this is what we think we want to do, and we just kind of give them options. Darren gives them options, and then we all come together and form the stuff. Anyone else? Sweet.
Favorite court case?
What do you mean?
Favorite thing you've had to litigate?
Oh, not they all suck. What's that?
I think I'm pretty clear on wills and entity formation, but can you talk a little bit about trusts and how they're different?
So trusts are awesome for your heirs. So if you die with a will, your heirs take the will to a lawyer or to the court in the jurisdiction you're at, and they have to probate that will. So the court has to look at the will and determine, is it valid? And then what does it say? And then there's all kinds of things that you have to do in order. It's a drawn out process. It takes about a year to administer that estate through the will and things like that. Whereas if it's a trust is a private document, so it doesn't get filed with the court. The trust automatically makes things happen. So you say, I want Jeremy to have my boat because he likes boats. When you die, I basically take a copy of your trust and an affidavit down to the DMV, and they give me the title to your boat. So it makes it to where it keeps it out of court for the most part. One mistake a lot of people make is they don't transfer all of their assets to the trust, and so then they have a pour-over will. So most of the stuff gets administered by the trust, and then the pour-over will says everything that I didn't put in the trust, I meant to put in the trust. So they have to probate that part of it. But
it
most of the
does
time,
separate that though.
right, it separates it out, and most times it still keeps you under the thresholds to make it to where you have a shorter publication period or no publication period or something to that effect.
Another question. Around business entities, you mentioned things to put in place and keep up to date to keep lawyers from piercing the corporate veil and getting to your personal
Corporate
assets.
formalities, right.
So, there's the treasurer's report, there's an annual meeting report, then there's resolutions. Do you have paralegals that could help with that kind of stuff at a lower billable rate?
Right, so we handle that on a flat fee basis for people. When we do it on an annual basis, we'll send you minutes and say, look at these, if anything important happened, let us know, we'll add them to it, otherwise sign and return it. And we just do that on an annual basis and make sure you have your meeting minutes up. The main thing, I mean, you certainly want to take care of all of that stuff, but the main thing is not commingling. So if you have a company and you can't go buy, for peak business coaching, you probably don't need to go buy a boat. So if you're going to buy a boat and then paying for your gas in the boat and then buying skis and all that stuff with your peak business coaching credit card, they're likely going to say that you didn't observe the formalities of the business, because how did that help your business? Maybe you could do skis or something and say, oh, it was networking, or that's a question for him. But you know, like doing things like that, that's when they can start piercing the corporate veil and coming after you and saying that that's just you're just trying to do that to shield liability.
All right.
Excellent.